Morning, everyone. My name is Professor Sankadi. I'm teacher at the University of Shlef, Department of English Language, Algeria. Today, I'm going to speak about a very important point, and that is digital assessments at the Algerian University. The dilemma between legal requirement and learning acquirement. The story behind this paper or this video is I was teaching my students 12 days ago, and when I was making the roll call and I reached the students' names who was chronically truant during the whole second semester. Of course, I told her that according to the law, she is excluded and expelled from the grammar unit of teaching. At that moment, she told me that according to the law, exclusion had been or has been abolished. So here lies the story. So how am I going to assess a student who is most of the time absent of my class? And how am I going to deal with the legal instructions and the legal requirements, the texts, the legal texts that shape the teaching and learning process at university? Within this paper or with this video, I'm going to talk about some points. What do you mean by digital assessment? And what is the reason or the aim of assessment? Why do we assess? What to assess and how to assess? What is the difference between evaluation and assessment? And what is legal requirements and the learning requirements? And where's the dilemma? We know that digital assessment, it's a new way of using what we call different kinds and sources of ICTs to implement and support assessment procedures. And in our country, we have implemented a new system, electronic system, which is the Progress platform. It is a platform, electronic platform, where teachers and students can have the right to get in touch with each other, to know their marks, to know their evaluation system, to know the kinds of the courses, programs, etc. So it's something good, but it has got what they call another negative side that we are going to underline here. According to Carol Tomlinson, assessments is today's means of modifying tomorrow's instructions. Underlying the problems of today will lead us to issue tomorrow instruction to enhance education, teaching, learning, etc. The meaning of assessment is somehow we have different kinds of definitions, but the main one is, in my opinion, it's a process of gathering, recording, interpreting, using and communicating information about students' progress and achievement during development of knowledge, concepts, skills, and attitudes. Why to assess students? Sorry. The assessment of students' learning and competences can provide information to all involved stakeholders, students, teachers, and governments, and what university learners have learned and where they stand. We know also that the assessment is used to improve the learning process. On their part, for example, learners can use their assessments information to surpass the learning behavior. If a student, for example, is facing some handicaps, some problems within a unit of teaching, so he's going to study again, to revise again, to find out solution in order to overcome such situations. Teachers also, when assessing students, when analyzing the assessment results, they try to plan their classes again. If something good, so they have to continue to go on, and if they are facing some problems with the students or the program, so they have to find out another roadmap in order to overcome the situation. And of course, the government is going to design education reforms through, for example, implementing, new instructional approaches. Classroom assessment primarily aims to determine a certain degree to which learners have acquired particular knowledge, has understand particular concepts, or has mastered certain skill. In my field, or in my department, as being a teacher of English language, generally we teach main skills of writing, reading, speaking, and listening. So through the different kinds of tasks, we may understand how is the student, where is the student located, I mean, how about his level, etc. So according to this method, we can understand, sorry, the real situation of the student. And here, because I'm going to talk after about the relationship between absenteeism and assessment. How am I going to assess a student who is like the one who came and told me that there's no exclusion, okay, according to the law? How am I going to assess? Okay, what am I going to assess? In classroom generally assessment, teachers are supposed to assess students' current abilities. And when I talk about current, the real abilities, the seen abilities. I mean, for a student who is always absent, so it becomes somehow difficult to assess someone who is not there. So the teacher can measure the abilities of the student in a given skill or task. The teacher can assess students' knowledge, skills, or behavior related to a particular field. Now, how to assess? According to Brown and Hudson, teacher used three sources of assessment methods: selected response assessments, constructed response assessments, and personal response assessments. Also, there are different kinds of assessments. One of them is, very important to them, according to me, is the formative assessments. Is the relationship between the relationship between the teachers and students. Both of them are involved in the process of assessments, so they continuously gathering evidence of learning to adapt what happens in the classroom through different kind of tasks. For example, through activating learners to support themselves and their peers. And here, through, for example, according to my experience, when I give students, for example, a task, and I ask them to work in teamwork, where they can exchange ideas, when they can correct each other. Sometimes I ask students to do an exercise individually, and at the same time I try to ask them to exchange their papers and to find out if the other student could, for example, underline the mistakes of the others. So it is a way that may help. So it creates a climate of of joking, of reading, of trying to exchanging ideas, conflicts. Okay, and a good conflict. I mean, it's not a bad conflict in the class. That means that enhance participation of all students, which is something good to measure and to assess the good and the lazy or the weak levels of the students. Sometimes also we try to clarify learners' poor and weak learners, elicit evidence of learning through a variety of methods, and providing feedback when we ask a student, for example, to give back their feedback, to answer, to write essays, to, for example, to complete the story, to you don't need to deduce what's going to happen after. All these kinds of things can be achieved within the class and to assess the level of students. In addition to that, some teachers also use what we call tests within the class. And the tests are considered to be central roles or play a central role in the assessment of student learning. Teachers use tests to assess the progress of students' learning. Tests provide relevant measures of an important learning outcome. Now, we move to the legal text, or what do you call the legal requirements. The legal assessments requirements concretized in the compulsory implementation of legal text, such as the Order 171, dated on February the 9th, 2023. We have another decree, which is 22-208, dated on June the 5th, 22, and the last one, which is the Act 992, dated on August 23. These are examples of texts that are shaping the process of teaching or the process of assessment at the universities under the frame of the LMD system in our country, of course. After reading the articles of such texts, I discovered that they only include quantitative description of students' performance. They focus on grades that might reflect classroom components. The word assessment has been repeated many times within the article of this legal text. For example, Article 24, in which it is stated the types of the kinds of assessments and the aims of the assessment, which is to ensure students' competencies, mainly summarizing, analyzing, and critical thinking. In addition to that, this kind of text underlies how to organize exams, how to score marks, how to register marks, how to reorganize makeup exams, how to correct papers, how do we deal if there is what we call conflicts between correction of papers, something like that. Okay, all of them are underlined with this kind of text. Now, I reached another point in which I'm going to make a relationship between, I'm going to underline, not to make a relationship, to underline what I was speaking about assessment, how do we assess and what do we assess and when do we assess, and another problem, which is absenteeism and assessment. Along the legal text that I mentioned before, mainly Article 22 of the last decree or the last act, which is 992, dated on August 22, absences will be taken in consideration when evaluating the students. It is stated like that, but in reality, how do we do this? How do we deal with the article? Here we have a lack of, I don't know, clarifying way that will help us to understand more what is behind. There is another article, which is 25. In case of unjustified absence in the TD's X session, 0 is assessed. I mean, when a student is absent with the session of TD, practical side, not conference side, so student is assessed 0 or is given 0 in the TDs. Now, we have another point which is linked to absenteeism and which is we call exclusion. This is the beginning of the story of the student who told me that according to the law, exclusion has been abolished. We know that exclusion is an unpleasant process that necessary, it's not good, but necessary to protect not only the student from futile expense, but also the quality of other students' learning experiences, and at the same time the reputation of the university graduates. We have some articles that deal with exclusion, for example, Article 33, 50, 38. But the problem that exclusions is mentioned under one ultimate condition, disciplinary sanction. There's no what we call no relationship between exclusion and being absent. On the Progress platform, there is no column designed for registering student exclusion status. And this is the very important problem. And according to my knowledge, I've been told that the text was issued after the Progress platform has been designed and not the opposite. Now, imagine that a student who is always absent, is truant, has many absences, and during the day of the assessment, we have the other good students who are always in my class, who are participating, doing their job, and they find that they were assessed in the same way as the one who has never been there. So some of these students, of course, might think that there is what we call a double standard among students. Assessments can be considered as a game that could be won. Grade inflation, sometimes we speak about money inflation, here we're speaking about grade inflation, because of the absences, could hurt some students, good students, who are thinking about further post studies. And so a lot. The mentioned text sometimes give what we call them lazy learners or students the right to be well assessed, 5 point or 5 marks plus 5 marks, simply because they are out of 10, STD mark, simply when attendance and random scattering of participation are justified. Conclusion. We as teachers assess to ensure that all underlying goals have been or are being met. If objectives are the destination, instruction is the path to it, then assessment is a tool to keep the efforts on track and to ensure that the path is right. After the completion of journey assessment is the indication that the destination is ahead. But importantly, when being confronted by mandatory instruction that shrink the instructor duty and shirk him from his more responsibility, here rises the dilemma. Thank you very much.